Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today in this video we're going to be inoculating some bulk substrate with some colonized grain spawn that we've done previously. The substrate that you use will depend on the type of mushrooms that you will be growing, and because we're using blue oysters, we will be using a wood type substrate because they are wood lovers. And today the type of wood we'll be using is hardwood pellets that will be basically hydrated, and we will add some additives into it to ensure they grow quickly. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this in front of a laminar flow hood today. I'm also using sterilized substrate. I sterilize this for 90 minutes in a pressure cooker, and then I let it cool. You don't want to do this while it's hot. Some people may argue that you don't need sterilized substrate nor use a laminar flow hood at this point, but I prefer to do it this way because I've done all the work before this. I don't want to ruin it and get contamination at the end. And so the typical recipe that I use for wood lovers is 5 cups of hardwood pellets, 6 cups of hot water, 1 cup of bran for nutritional value for the mycelium, and 1 tablespoon of gypsum to stabilize the pH. I use gypsum in quite a few things to be able to stabilize the pH. Mycelium can be very sensitive to large amounts of pH change, and this will help stop that from happening as they colonize. All right, so now that we have everything sanitized with 70% isopropyl, we'll go ahead and open both of these up. The quicker we can get this done, the better. Even though we're in front of a laminar flow hood, we want to make sure that we're not keeping this open for a long amount of time. There are still particles of stuff in the air no matter what. And the quicker we can do this, the less chance we have introducing any type of contamination into our bulk substrate while transferring the grains over into the bag. So you can see I'm actually using a quart size, which is a 32-ounce wide mouth mason jar, but you can also use other types of colonized grain, and you'll see later in the video we actually have a much larger bag as well that we split into multiple bags of bulk substrate. And then you can also, which we'll show a little bit later as well, you could also go directly from a colonized petri dish that you cloned, if you wanted to, directly into a substrate bag. I believe it would take significantly longer, but we'll talk about that later if you go that route. And I always like to clean the inside and outside right around the rim because we're going to need to heat seal these. And I've noticed that if you don't clean the inside or they have water, they don't seal very well. So I also like to seal it twice, just in case the first one didn't do a very good job. And then I even take a step further, and I like to use masking tape over those seams where you use the heat on them, just to ensure that if there are little tiny micro leaks, that it's not exposed straight into the air. And the resistance for air to go through this tape is a lot more than it would be to go through the filter. So the chance of air coming in and out through the filter is much higher than trying to get through the top of the bag here. And then I've noticed this is one of the most important steps of doing bulk substrate, is making sure you get a good mix. Every single grain of the whole oats from the colonized grain that I have is basically a brand new inoculation point for the sawdust here. So we want to do our best to mix this as best as possible. And also, if you look at the corner of the bags, a lot of moisture is usually in those corners than it is in the rest of it. So we want to spread that moisture out to make sure we get the right moisture content throughout the bag. And that will make sure that your bags colonize pretty evenly, or as evenly as we can. Because if you don't mix it very well, it may take double, triple the time, and maybe even more to colonize the entire thing. To be able to go to fruiting, and we don't want that. We want it to colonize as quickly as possible, preferably within a week if we can help it. So now that we have it fully mixed, we're just going to kind of make sure that it's a decent shape, basically, so when we do put it into fruiting chambers later, it will be able to stand upright if we want it to. You don't want to pack it too much because that could inhibit the mycelium from being able to colonize quickly. So keep it kind of loose, but then I like to flatten out the top. And today we're going to be doing multiple jars of colonized grain. So I believe today we're doing 4 or 5 of them that we have. These did come out of the fridge because, as you can tell, they actually went a little bit over how long I typically like to colonize them. And you can tell like how fluffy they start getting where the air hole on top of the can is through the micropore tape. They'll start getting really fuzzy, and that's them starting to get to the point where they may want to start fruiting. And you don't want them fruiting in the jar, that's for sure. And so we'll flatten out this one and just make it a pretty standardized shape. And that one looks pretty good. And here we go with another one. Again, we won't go through the entire process. You got the idea of what that looks like for each one. And we'll just dump this one in here and we'll go through them one at a time until we're good to go. So the next thing is here's an example of a large bag full of grain spawn. I believe this is about 2 or 3 pounds, if I remember correctly. And this thing can basically inoculate 3 substrate bags. You could even do less, but I like to use a decent amount of the colonized grain in each. It will make sure that the substrate colonizes quickly. And again, I'm shooting for around 5 to 7 days of colonization, and I'll show you at the end of this video before we get into the time lapse of these, which is what my incubator basically looks like. So we're just going to do like 4 to 5 scoops in here, about 1/3 of the bag, and then we're going to seal it, and we'll do this multiple times to basically spread out this colonized grain into 3 large bags of substrate. The substrate bags with the grain are about, I would say, 4 pounds, give or take. So they're not massive. The bag probably could hold more, but I've noticed that they are very hard to get the grain moved around in the bag if you fill it too much. And you don't want that. Again, you want the grain to be inoculating as much of the sawdust in one go as you can. And that's what we do. And then once we have only 1/3 left, we'll go ahead and just dump it into the bag instead of scooping it. And then we'll seal this final bag up here like we did the other one. So we'll give it a good mix. And then this one will be good to go just like the others. And again, I like to double seal mine just to make sure that they're sealed properly. And again, I like to put masking tape over it. And you can see I have a pretty good seal because you see the pressure inside of this thing. And we'll get it at a decent little shape that we like. And we're good to go on this one. Third and final way you can do this, I will actually show, you can inoculate grain jars or grain bags with your petri dishes you've cloned, live cultures, or even use liquid culture on a petri dish. It's just another technique to do it. If you don't want to use grain, you could. It probably would take significantly longer. So this is my incubation chamber here. I have a very small little ceramic heater. I believe it's only like 500 watts. And it does have a safety device. Never put a heater inside a tent like this unattended unless it has a safety device where if it falls over, it'll turn off. This one is just an on and off switch, and then I have it hooked to a temperature controller that controls the power and the on and off to it. And you can see inside here, I have other things incubating as well, including agar petri dishes. So we'll go ahead and put our bags into here. And like I said, these should be ready within 5 to 7 days, given at 74 Fahrenheit, give or take. Thanks again, everyone, for sticking around to the end of the video. Please leave any questions or comments you may have down below, and please enjoy the time lapse.